Season 2, Episode 4. What?
Welcome to Starting Now, a Barry podcast, presented by Cinemasins.
Yeah, that's the name of the episode. Hello, everybody. This is Starting Now, the Barry podcast. I'm Chris Atkinson with Barrett Share and Mike Hester.
What?
Yeah. What a great title too, because you're going to be watching this entire episode wondering why it's titled that.
Yes.
You will watch this entire episode wondering until the very end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We start off with Barry and Sally and Sam at a diner. And I love how they do this, too, because Sam says something like, "What do you do, Bobby?" And he goes, "My name is," and it goes straight to the Barry card. And it does it for like a split second, and then it comes back, "I'm Barry."
Yeah.
And yes, during this scene, Sam seems like the nicest guy ever.
He's fine.
It's the weirdest
and Sally's
thing ever.
okay, too.
Sally's okay, and he's sitting there, he's confused. He's like, Barry is sitting there going, "This is the guy that you're talking about?"
Yeah. And I was confused, too. Not only is he presenting well, right? But also, why would they go to dinner with him in the first place?
Yeah, they're going to dinner. He's talking about his family. He's got a 5-year-old kid. He's just, everything about him is affable. There are slight cracks when you watch this episode multiple times, like getting the name wrong. And when Barry interrupts to say certain things, you can see Sam's eyes dart over to Barry, like kind of like, "Fuck you, dude." But it's a split second. You don't really notice it on your first viewing because you're sitting there going, "Man, this guy's so nice." But he has those little moments where he's like, "Fuck you."
And he's talking, he's heard about the cedar thing through Sally's friend.
Yeah.
Which makes me think maybe she's not the best friend here. She didn't.
Yeah.
I don't think that's cool what she did. And then Sally immediately starts to downplay it. And Barry starts to say, "No, this is important. This is a theater piece." And Sally says, "No, we're not gonna do it. It's just, what does she say?"
She says it's just a scene, and then he says, "We're doing this in front of a bunch of people."
Yeah,
and basically saying, why cower? Why don't just go ahead and say this is what the scene's about? And if this guy wants to say something about it, I'm here.
Yeah.
And so they're not on the same page about how to tell him what this scene is. It's a scene for people. It's to be acted in front of an audience.
Well, I've been thinking about this a lot because we get into the role of an abusive relationship, and from a perspective of she has been abused. Boy, it's tough to talk about because I've not been in that, and I don't really know anyone who has, and so we're just going to only be able to speculate about what she's going through. I feel like I read online a little bit about this episode, and there were some people who were kind of upset because they got into the abusive side of things, and when you've been in an abusive relationship, it's bad. It is really, really bad. So that being said, I speculate that she's in it still.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's played intentionally.
Yeah, exactly. And she has still, because I know for me personally, when I meet somebody I haven't seen in 10 years, a part of me is, or 20 years, a part of me is like right back in college or whatever.
Sure.
Like I'm acting the way I used to act. And I think, why am I acting like this? This is weird. This isn't who I am anymore. I'm a totally different person. And she's going right back into being this sort of, I guess, meak, is that the right word?
Deferential.
Deferential.
Yeah,
polite, apologetic.
Doesn't want to appear, wants to be liked, to still be liked and everything. And so the natural instinct is to, everything that you say is funny and everything that you do, okay, that was in the past, but you're not doing it now. So this is the thing that you always hear about abusive relationships, right? It's that the abuse happens, then the person then does this apology and
Yes.
this makeup and this I won't do it again and all that. And the person being abused believes it because they don't think that there's any other options for them out there, or that there is that they can't just leave and not be in this, whatever it is. They just can't, they think that they can't be in this for whatever reason.
And part of it is not provoking the other person
Yeah.
too. This is why I've dealt with a lot of patients with PTSD and abusive relationships and stuff like that. This is why her entire behavior when she gets to the restaurant makes perfect sense to me. I don't know why she goes to the restaurant in the first place. I don't. That seemed like a bit of a stretch of character. Far be it from me to suggest that they go otherwise, but I didn't think that this had a chance. Matter of fact, I thought this was a dream sequence.
Yeah.
At the beginning of this episode, maybe they were trying to set us up for that, but I was like, there's no fucking way that not only she would go to a restaurant with this, but that Barry would go along with it too. I thought his ass was dead as fried chicken when he was in the parking lot. You know what I mean?
We see a little bit later on in the episode about how he's manipulative. And he's able to manipulate her, and I'm just assuming that's what happened to get her into the restaurant. She is smart to have Barry go with her, but she's not out of that with him completely, and he is still able to manipulate her some. When you get stuck in that rut, you can get right back into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we do see later on, he says, I don't understand, because they're trying to do the scene again. He's like, I don't understand. You like, you went out to dinner with him and you seemed like you were all right with that. And here we are, we're trying to do this. And she realizes that what she's been doing is not true. She walks out on that, and Barry, who doesn't want to hurt her, goes after her and says, "What? No." It's like, this is such an important scene to the entire series, I think, because he says to her that it's okay to be a different person in here.
Yeah,
it's okay to have some secrets, because it's okay. It's what he wants. More than anything.
Yeah. It's also kind of plays back to what Fuchs told him before, that in the third episode.
Yeah, it's very much like that. Yeah.
That, you don't want to tell the truth, and they want Braveheart.
Yeah.
So he is kind of saying that, but it felt honest what he was saying to her and trying to actually help her.
Oh no, I think he believes it's true.
Yes.
I think he does believe, but it's more it's more what he wants. He wants to have, he's like, look, if we can make this where we have secrets and we can still somehow tell some certain truth about things, then we're okay. We're good. And and that's really what just goes along with him. So he says, I love this line. He says, we want to be what we tell people we are. Like, for instance, I'm Barry Block. I'm an actor. And you're Sally Reed, and you told that guy off.
Yeah.
And so that's how they sort of agree to, like, let's do it this way.
This scene's where Sarah Goldberg really, she's been great the whole time. I thought her acting here was particularly good, and in the entire second season, to where people are saying she's going to get nominated for an Emmy. There's a lot of people are saying that's a great chance, and I think she should.
Yeah.
And here she's so guilty, and she shouldn't. It's easy for me to say. She shouldn't be guilty. She shouldn't feel guilty. She didn't do anything wrong. He did things wrong. He put her in that situation, and she left. And that is strong. Yeah. But she doesn't know it.
Yeah. Again, she doesn't think that just the leaving part is the strong part.
Yes.
Which it is. It is the number one thing that shows strength. But she wants to show, think about this on a stage, okay? How it actually happened. The guy's just lying there on the bed. And then she goes in with her friend and gets a bunch of things and leaves.
Yeah.
What is that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So in her head, that's not dramatic. That's not anything anybody wants to see. in real life, it's very powerful, but on stage, it doesn't come across that way.
Which is beautiful that the show's able to show both of those sides.
Mm-hmm.
She even, we'll get to the actual performance of this, but she physically can't do that. She can't make the undramatic choice when she's on stage. But we're able to see through the lens of the show. We're able to see the actuality. It's the 51st Dates thing. 500 Days of Summer, not 51st Date. It's the 500 Days of Summer thing where it's the actuality versus what you think happened.
Yeah.
She wants to be in blockbusters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
like a star.
If you want to be a star and want to be in the $100 million movie, you got to have that dramatic scene. There are worlds, plays, and smaller budget films where you could do more real things like this. She could do that, but no, she wants to be a star. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
I do like also that line in the scene too, where she's like, "This is not how it happened," and he goes, "Well, Star Wars didn't happen," and that's a totally rad movie. There is a point where, and sorry if I'm skipping along and we haven't gotten to certain things, but this is how I'm remembering the episode. But she is trying to find her emphasis in her lines on stage, trying to say I want to hammer that line, that word, that whatever. While she's doing this on stage, Sam is in the control room watching her, and Barry sees this. Barry chases after him, and basically now it's on because you've crossed the line. You've officially crossed the line. And he goes, "Hey man, she said she didn't want you to see that." And he says, "No, you said that she didn't want me to see that." And this is, by the way, very typical asshole ex-boyfriend behavior. Don't know how many people of you experienced this, but I have seen this many times. He's going to his car, Sam is, and just trying to get away from the situation. I don't know if he thinks that Barry can kick his ass, or
I don't think he does. Otherwise, he wouldn't say the shit that he says to him.
Yeah, maybe, but he's saying it over his shoulder, and he's going very quickly to his car.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he knows that, but he is going to his car, and then he says that awful thing about I was with her first and I fucked her before you did, and I can't even bring myself to say what he says.
It's horrible.
But I've heard worse.
Yeah.
I've heard worse than that.
Yeah.
And,
I have too.
and it's so typical type of thing. But now it's on, seriously. There's this line has been broken, and now Barry is sort of if this guy even comes anywhere near her now, I'm ready. It's on.
Mm-hmm.
And he does it the mature way. He stands there. He doesn't initiate any fights or anything. Once the dude says that, he's just okay, man,
Yeah.
and just and he moves on. But Sam calls right after this.
Mm-hmm.
She's up there trying to do this thing that's about him, and he calls. And at first she ignores it. And this is what you're talking about. This is the whole luring in type of thing that keeps happening. The phone stops ringing, and then he calls right back, right after that. And then she answers, and he says, he's nice again. She didn't see that out there.
Uh-huh.
He's nice again. He's like, I'm going to be leaving soon, but I need to give you something. And she's like, I don't think so, or whatever. He's like, come on, I'm only here for I think this is how this happens. You make the other person feel guilty, and then they have to do these things, quote unquote,
to a hotel room.
To a hotel room.
Yeah. So he moved his flight up, and all of these just swarmy things that she's not seeing.
Yeah. It will make you feel gross watching this guy just somehow reel her in throughout this whole thing. He has something for her. And she's like, I don't know. And then he's like, well, look, just meet me at the cafe downstairs.
Yeah.
And of course the cafe's closed.
What an asshole.
And she goes, well, the cafe's closed. And he goes, yeah, I saw that. Just come up to my room. Since you've gotten this far,
Yeah.
why don't you come up to the room? And God, you're like, this whole scene is just like, you're just like grabbing onto things. Like, what is going to happen?
Yeah.
And she goes up to the room, and there's something about something as subtle as when she's at the door and the door is open, but then like somehow, some way that slow motion door that hotels have where it hangs and you're like, put your hand in there.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of latches behind as it closes. Is there something about that? She now can't turn to open the door because that's a sign that I want to get out of here. Mm-hmm. So she's still trying to be nice and being polite and everything like that. Sam, by the way, he's got this old thing from high school, this old program that when she was in a play, he went to see it all 6 times, and boy, was she awesome and all that. And she's like, oh, that's such a nice thing. You can see that she genuinely thinks that's a nice thing. And really, it's just sort of this whole idea, like, will you maybe stop doing this scene that I have been told that you're doing about me? Because the next thing is she's about to leave, and he goes, things haven't been all that good. And you're like, just go. You're like, okay, sorry about that. I'll head out. And then she stops and she goes, what's wrong? And he goes, my dad's sick. And you're like, oh my God. And then she's like, okay, so your dad's sick. Okay, sorry. He even calls him Jack, calls the father Jack. Goes through all that, like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And then you're like, no, don't say it. She goes, well, give me updates. And you're like, no, God, everything that's happening is just in slow motion. And it's so real to me. And I don't know what this Reddit thing was talking about, but again, I don't know what it's like to be in this type of situation.
I don't know what it's like either, but and Barrett, you may know more along these lines than I do. But these abusers know not only are they manipulative, but there is an honest side to it that makes it somehow worse, because he did go to all 6 plays.
Sure.
That's a nice thing to do. That's someone who cares.
You're setting up. You're setting up, your endearing qualities.
Yes,
well, look what I did. Of course, that was, 18 years ago or something like that. And also the sob stories, like, look what's wrong with me, so you need to identify with me. And all of that is a trap to say, well, I can get what I need from you, which is to not only, I get a sense in this moment that not only did he want her to stop doing the play, he probably wanted to sleep with her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he probably wanted to take advantage of her, and who knows what after that. But you're right, everything is on the table when she goes into that room. Mm-hmm. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, anything is on the table. And that's what makes it so creepy and tense and all that stuff.
Yeah. And because he's done these nice things, he can probably tell himself that he's not a bad guy.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Bad guys don't think they're bad guys.
No, Sally is about to get her moment, though, because he says, after he gets this whole sympathy card going for him and everything, she says, I'm going to be sure to be respectful about this scene and everything so that, you're not embarrassed. And so he goes, so you're going to not do the scene now? Mm. And she goes, no, I'm doing the scene. And this is her choke on this moment.
Yeah.
And Barry, by the way, this is another great thing about this show, is that it does give her the agency to get out on her own, and she doesn't require Barry at all. And Barry is on the move. Once he hears about this meeting that's happening and everything, he's on the road. He's got the gun going. He's sneaking around the hotel, and in a great scene, Sally opens the door. He points the gun. Luckily, nobody's watching the door.
It's staged beautifully.
Yes, and he sees Sally there, and he's like, "All right," and he hightails it.
Another instance of him sucking and sneaking up on people.
Yeah, exactly. Now, by the way, I said that in a way. I don't think he knows he doesn't know the meeting's happening, right? He's just going there.
No, yeah, he just. I think he's just pissed off at the conversation. He has no idea that she's there.
No idea that she's there yet, and so he's going there to just kill him. And then when the door opens, that's usually good night, motherfucker. But this time he sees a whole different situation he was not expecting, and hides. And she leaves, and he has at this point, Sam has gotten to the real scary part of him. When she says, I'm doing this scene, he goes over and hits the wall really hard and starts calling her a bunch of names. But he does say one thing, and this is something they mentioned in the Hader-Berg thing afterwards. He does mention that this is not a true scene. He does mention that what she's saying is bullshit, and he's right.
He's right.
Yeah,
he's right.
He's not right because of what he did. He's right because of what she's trying to perform, and this is of course going to lead to a different thought process later on for this whole scene. But she does leave. She gets out of there. Thank God. And Barry, hide before he's found out. Thank God. These type of things. And you see Barry get to his car, and he's like hits the steering wheel and all that, and he goes to Jean. He first wants to talk to Fuchs, and Fuchs tells him, because he has been instructed to try to get Barry over to his apartment and say, I did all this stuff. Fuchs gets a moment away from Loach where he says, "Don't call here. I'm going to block your number. Don't talk to me anymore." All that. And so Barry goes to the only person that he knows that can actually give him any advice anymore, and that's Jean. And so we go to this is a fantastic scene too, him going to Jean's place, and he's saying, "Somebody said something to me. It made me really mad, and I don't like who I am when I'm mad." And Gene and his typical thing is like, "So what? Did you clock him? Did you thump him?" He's like, "Hey, we're both alphas. I understand." And he's like, "No, I didn't do any of that." And goes, it just made me mad, and I don't like the way I am when I'm mad. And then Gene says, "Man, this is so frustrating. You had that great story that you were going to tell, and now you want to do this other thing, and you gave me Braveheart and all that.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's going on." And so Barry tells him the truth again. He's told Gene more truth than anybody, but Gene still doesn't know who he really is. He tells the truth about this story that he's trying to tell about saving this guy. Once the guy gets shot in this thing, Barry goes down and treats the wound and everything. Meanwhile, all of his buddies are shooting at a rooftop somewhere. They're all shooting up, but Barry sees a door close.
Yeah.
And he's like, though, that must have been where the shot came from. And he's gone in a completely different mode at this point, where he just assumes that he's just made a 1 + 1 = 2 type of thing here. He goes into this home and just blasts this dude who's completely innocent of anything. He was just probably looking out and seeing what was happening. And his fellow soldiers, to their credit, come in and say, "What are you doing? You're a fucking psycho. This guy was up on the roof, man. What are you doing?" And it's just horrible. This is more about, I don't know if this takes more sort of, it takes more out of his character than it has taken any of the other things that we've seen. We've thought he's just killed guilty people, and then just a couple of innocent people to keep his story, to keep doing what he's doing or whatever. But he has actually killed innocent people before this.
Yeah. And even with those innocent people, with Chris and Janice, he never did it when he was angry. This is the first time. He's always been clinical about this, whether it's, just the, lack of affect, killing the bad guys, or killing for a reason for Chris. He was a little bit emotional with Chris, but he knew what he had to do. He's never killed on impulse to this point,
Yeah.
There's a lot of season left, but
Yeah.
still, this is the first where we see the emotional side kick in.
And of course, they still have left room too for there to be other things between the time that he killed those guys at the sniper nest and to this.
Yeah.
There are ways that they can maybe even show this has possibly happened even in between that, and this is the first time he's actually done it in front of people.
Yeah.
But we don't know that yet.
Yep.
If you go back a little bit to the first time that he killed, and they're trying to get the radio, do you have permission to kill this guy? And they didn't get the permission, and
No.
he just shot anyway. And so he kind of maybe he went off protocol and killed there, but he was a hero for it. So there he was a hero. Here he goes and he kills an innocent person in anger, and he's not a hero for it. I feel like that's part of what has messed him up so
Sure.
much is he's had that experience, and then that was the last thing he did in the military, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because
because the next thing that we see later on is actually we saw it in the scene with Fuchs when they have that sort of reconciliation.
They're talking about it.
They're
yeah.
talking about how actually he says it later to Gene that that this was the last thing he did. He went to Germany or something.
Yeah.
He was. They put him in the hospital. They sent him to Germany, and a friend
who's
is
Fuchs,
was able to get him a discharge and to get him out of there. So that was the last thing that he did. Fuchs hinted at it, saying, "No, you can't tell that story."
Right.
When they are in the Lululemon, and now he has told the story to Gene, who starts to take that with his son and tells him later on, that's something that you did, but it doesn't define you.
He's actually heard him this
It
time,
does,
by the
yeah.
way. He actually believes him.
Yeah.
For the
he
first
does believe
time.
him, yeah.
And of course, being Gene, he has to relate it to himself.
Of
But
course,
it's in a positive
but
way
I
this
like
time.
the way that he
Yeah.
Well, and I
yeah.
love too how he was like he said, I have a son. He's like when he was younger, I was cruel and I was all these things to him, and now I've tried to get back to his life, and today he brought me strawberries, and it really, really, like the way he says that, he's like, the strawberries are like the best thing in the world. He has a moment with Leo where Leo drops those strawberries off. And he's like, well, we're going to throw them in the garbage anyway. He says, well, I can at least come to the, terms of the fact that you find me above garbage,
But he made the effort. As awkward and ill thought through his giving him the key was in episode 3, at least it registered as he's trying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And sometimes, lesson for you, everyone. Sometimes if you try, even if you totally screw it up, at least you've tried, right? So
This has been Life Lessons with Mike
Lessons for
Hester.
you.
Yeah. But after Barry tells this story, Gene's like, oh yeah, you don't want to tell that story ever again.
no, not, especially not to the people in this troop. They're children.
Yeah. Yeah. But and then also even more Geneism happens in this, where he's like, okay, Barry, my private classes come out of a different loan out, so I need to get another different loan. So he's still charging for this.
It's a perfect little coda to that conversation.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So now Barry's excited. He's been built back up again by Gene. He decides, I'm just going to come in on unannounced to Fuchs, who, by the way, is trying to escape Loach.
Yeah.
In the hotel room. He's out on the balcony and he's trying to find a way down. There's no chance in hell he's going to find one. He's on the balcony, and Barry, not even thinking about what he's doing, is like, hey, Fuchs, what are you doing? And he's like, I don't know, looking for something. And he's like, I'll be right up there. He turns around and he's already there. Barry's just leaping over the balcony. It's like 2 stories high. It's so awesome. And Barry, before Fuchs can get off the ledge, he's already going into the hotel room.
Yeah.
And Fuchs has to go back in there, and he's trying to tell him without informing Loach that he doesn't want him to say what he's saying. He's like, oh man, I'm coming to terms with all the things that I've done before and all the stuff that I did out in the war and killing Moss.
Yeah.
And Fuchs is sitting there trying to just like, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. But he does say it. And here's a question. He admits to killing Moss.
That's
true.
I totally missed that the first time I watched. I know, and that's me, but man, yeah, he admitted to killing Moss. How did I not realize until later in the season?
Well, yeah, but even to his own admission at the beginning of the first episode or the last episode of the first season, one of those afterwards, they said, oh, we don't know if she's dead or not. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things we like to keep a mystery or whatever. But he admits to killing Moss. Does that still mean that he may not have? I don't know. It feels like a pretty black and white admission.
Yeah.
Once he says that, Loach comes out of the shadows and says, I got you, buddy. And he gets Fuchs out of the room and Barry has to sit down, and Loach has got him, man. He's nabbed him.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, where does this go from here? I mean, Loach has got him. I guess Barry's going to find a way, or one of the Chechens is out there, like had been following him. He's going to shoot Loach or something. Something's going to happen. And Loach goes, you know what it's like to have somebody who loved you. He says, someone you loved is no longer with you, or something like that. Yeah. Barry thinks he's talking about Moss. And he goes, I'm sorry about Moss. And he's like, I'm not talking about Moss. And Loach shows him the picture of Ronnie Proxon, the guy who is banging his wife right now. And he says, if you kill this guy, everything goes away, man. I don't even talk about this anymore. And that's when Barry says, what?
It's amazing because up until that moment, the only time that the law has ever had like a chance of getting Barry is Moss, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's been inadvertently one step ahead of everybody, right? Whether it's through the phone, the alibi phones or whatever, or whether it's just the narrative worked in a different way. And we know that Loach is coming after him, but you don't expect for him to make a confession, even to Fuchs. Like, I didn't think there was a chance in hell that he was going to get caught at all.
And there are two things in the past. Actually, it's two things in this episode that do later happen. The Fuchs asks Loach, what do you think he's going to just come in here and just spill everything? And that's what he does.
Exactly.
There's also a point we didn't get to this because we were going through that main thread. There is a point where after that scene with Sam, he goes back to train those Chechen guys. When Meyerbeck shoots one of the melons and everybody goes over to congratulate him about it, how awesome he is, Barry, who is already just in this sort of like fuck you mode about the Sam thing, goes over and shoots right next to him in his ear and says that if you lose focus, you're not going to be able to kill, and you need to think of only one thing, and that's killing, and that does later on. Factor.
Yeah, definitely. I want to go back to Loach. I love the scene. He walks in with the gun, and it takes him a minute or two. He has to talk himself into going through with this. And he's like, okay, you're here. He has this whole monologue that he's saying out loud. You're here, you've been planning this, and you're doing it, and you don't know that he's doing this until you watch it again. It took me watched it last night, and it's like, oh, he's having to psych himself up to do this. He's
breaking the law.
He's breaking the law, and he's going way out of the bounds of what he's supposed to do as a cop. And this guy killed your partner.
Yeah, which he didn't even acknowledge, really.
I know, really. But he is so obsessed with this, his marriage falling apart, and with this guy that she's willing to do that. Once you've seen it, now I'm watching it again. The first 4 episodes, every scene with him becomes different now.
Yeah.
Everyone, because you see him wanting to go to Cleveland by himself and do these things by himself. And when you see him setting up the surveillance and sitting in there, and in episode 3, where Barry is talking to Fuchs, and they had the love fest, so they're like, come here, and you don't want to tell that story, and Fuchs isn't trying to get the confession at all, and you just see him head in hands, And you realize watching it again, he's head and hands not because he wants to put this guy in jail, but because he wants revenge.
Mm-hmm.
It colors everything differently. What a great story it is. Watching it the second time through, you see so much more than you do the first time.
Well, and something that they planted a seed. I don't know if they even knew this is where it was headed, but season 1, episode 1, they had Loach and his wife breaking up.
Yeah.
And Janice having that great line about, like, he's a cop and she's human. What were you going to expect? But they kept that sort of the knowledge of that alive all the way through this, and then it's become a huge major plot point to this season. I agree. I love the fact that he's psyching himself up in this whole thing, because a lot of shows forget about that. It goes right into it. Like, now that you've done this, you're going to do this for me because I've been evil all along. And this guy is really, he's a good cop, but he's also now been driven to do something beyond what he wants to do as a cop, and he finds a way. He's found a way now that he can get back at this Ronnie Proxon guy.
You get the feeling that he's never done anything like this before at all. You see him in that earlier episode where Moss is admits to having something going on with Gene, and he's going by the book, but he understands. But it's done, right? It's done. So he's always been that way, but love's gotten in the way.
Yeah, we never see his wife. We end up obviously seeing Ronnie. There's
a picture in the was it episode 1 of this season or episode 2? I don't think we really see her, but he's holding her on the beach. Yeah, but it's not a good. It's not like a picture you can really see who it is or anything. But we don't really see her. She's the Frasier's wife, and
Lilith,
or was it not Frasier's wife? It's
Niles.
It's in Cheers, it's Norm's wife. We don't ever see her.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
She's kind of like that. I can't wait to talk about episode 5.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Episode 4 goes out with a great song, Virginia Plain by Roxy Music. And I don't know if you guys know this song. It is, it's just an awesome song. It was a pretty big hit in the UK, never here. Brian Eno was in the band at the time, like 1973 or something, before Eno did a lot of his other stuff. And it's all about, and people interpret the lyrics differently. You can go online and look. But it's about like breaking into the music industry and getting your first contract and lots of things like that, and dealing with all of those groups. I don't know. That was interesting because they're trying to break into movies. And then, it's just a great song. I wanted to bring it up. So.
No, that's the in-depth analysis that people come here
there
for.
You go.
This is a perfect, I don't know, if we're getting season 3, we'll obviously be doing this podcast differently and everything because we won't know what happened. But this is a good halfway point for this season because everything's going to change after this. It's going to be a completely different kind of show. Well, not a completely different kind of show, but it from what we've seen in the first 4 episodes, is going to be completely different from that after this. And so it's a good halfway breaking point for this season.
Much like the halfway point in the first season, which I didn't like all that much, but you certainly, they introduced Vaughn. They broke up the relationship between Barry and Sally. Like, there was a lot of shit that happened by that 4th episode in the first season, and they've done the same world building here to really set things off.
Yeah. Okay, well, that'll do it for episode 4 of season 2 of Barry. Where can people talk about this very episode, Barrett?
Go to your Twitter. Open up the Twitter right now while I'm talking, while you're listening. Open up the Twitter and look for @NowStarting if you aren't already following us. And give us a follow, give us a tweet. You can also go to SoundCloud, which the link is in the show notes here, and interact there. Give us a comment, what you think of the episode, what you think of what we thought of the episode. Okay, and that's all I got.
Yeah. All right, well, that'll do it for this episode. It's Chris Atkins and Barrett Shear and Mike Kester. We'll see you next time.